What if I told you that the most powerful version of an empath doesn't emerge at 20 or 30, but somewhere after life has stripped away every illusion they ever held? Stay with me, because what Carl Jung discovered about the second half of life will fundamentally change how you understand empaths forever. Carl Jung said that the first half of life is about building the ego, and the second half is about confronting it. And nowhere is this more explosive than in the life of an empath. You see, people assume empaths burn out. They think all that feeling, all that absorbing, all that carrying other people's pain eventually destroys them. But Jung's research revealed something far more surprising and frankly extraordinary. Here's what nobody tells you about empaths as they age. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll see maturity in a completely different light. According to Carl Jung, midlife is not a decline. It's what he called metanoia, a profound turning point where the psyche demands transformation. For most people, this process is uncomfortable, but for empaths, it's nuclear. Why? Because they've been accumulating emotional data their entire lives. Every betrayal catalogued, every manipulation decoded, every moment of being underestimated stored not as resentment, but as raw material for something Jung called the emergence of the true self. But here's where it gets fascinating, and why younger empaths should pay very close attention. Carl Jung observed that in youth, empaths lead almost exclusively with what he termed the feeling function. They absorb, they heal, they give. They pour themselves into others with an almost reckless generosity, and the world takes advantage of this every single time. But Jung discovered that this isn't the empath's final form. It's their apprenticeship. They're not being naive, they're being forged. And the transformation that begins in midlife is what Jung called the integration of the inferior function. Let me explain why this changes everything. In their younger years, empaths often suppress their thinking function, their capacity for logic, strategy, and detachment. They feel it would be cold. They fear it would make them less compassionate, so they hide it in what Jung called the shadow. But as life delivers its inevitable wounds, as relationships fail and trust is broken, and the empath finally grows tired of being everyone's emotional sanctuary, something shifts at the deepest level of their psyche. The thinking function doesn't replace the feeling, it merges with it. And when emotional intelligence combines with strategic clarity, Jung had a very specific term for what emerges. He called it the transcendent function, and it's absolutely unstoppable. Here's what most people completely miss about empaths in their 40s, 50s, and beyond. According to Carl Jung's theory of individuation, the second half of life is when a person finally stops living for others and begins living from their authentic center. For empaths, this is seismic. They spent decades being what everyone needed them to be, the listener, the healer, the one who always understood. But Jung discovered that this accommodation creates what he called a tension of opposites, a growing pressure between who they've been performing as and who they actually are. And when that tension finally breaks, it doesn't produce collapse, it produces clarity. The older empath stops explaining themselves. They stop apologizing for their boundaries. They stop shrinking to make others comfortable. This isn't bitterness. Jung understood it as the natural consequence of what he called psychological maturation. The empath doesn't lose their warmth. They gain discernment about where that warmth is directed. But here's the part that will completely redefine how you see aging and emotional power. Carl Jung said that the shadow contains not just our darkness, but our unlived life. For young empaths, the shadow often holds their assertiveness, their anger, their capacity to say no and mean it permanently. These are the qualities they buried because the world told them those traits weren't compatible with being a good person. But in the second half of life, Jung observed that the psyche refuses to keep these qualities hidden any longer. They surface, not as chaos, but as authority. The empath who spent 30 years listening becomes the one whose silence speaks volumes. The one who always forgave becomes the one whose forgiveness must now be earned. The one who never had boundaries becomes the one whose boundaries are absolute. This is what Jung called enantiodromia, the principle that everything eventually turns into its opposite when pushed far enough. And in the aging empath, this principle produces someone remarkable. According to Carl Jung, the individuated person, someone who has integrated both their light and shadow, possesses a quality he described as psychological completeness. They no longer operate from wounds, they operate from wisdom. They don't react to manipulation because they've seen every version of it. They don't chase approval because they've learned that the only validation that matters comes from within. And here's what makes this transformation so extraordinary. Jung discovered that empaths who reach this stage of development become what he called natural analysts of the human condition. Their decades of emotional experience function like a library. They can read people not through suspicion, but through pattern recognition refined over a lifetime. They see the lie before it's spoken. They sense the shift before it happens. They understand the wound behind the behavior before the person themselves is aware of it. This isn't paranoia or cynicism. It's what Jung termed earned wisdom, and it makes the mature empath the most psychologically formidable person in any room. Carl Jung said that the greatest tragedy is not growing old, but growing old without becoming conscious. The empath who has walked through decades of feeling everything, surviving everything, and learning from everything doesn't just become conscious, they become luminous. They stop trying to save people who enjoy drowning. They stop pouring energy into relationships that only flow one direction. They stop mistaking intensity for intimacy and chaos for connection. They arrive at what Jung called the art of conscious living, engaging with the world fully but selectively, loving deeply but wisely, feeling everything but being enslaved by nothing. The result is what Jung described as the individuated self, and in the aging empath, it's the most magnificent expression of human psychological evolution. They are not diminished by time, they are distilled by it. Every year has stripped away something unnecessary and revealed something essential. They become dangerous not because they attack, but because they cannot be deceived. They become powerful not because they dominate, but because they are completely sovereign over their own inner world. They become untouchable, not through walls, but through the quiet, unshakable knowing of exactly who they are. This is what Carl Jung understood about the second half of life, that it is not a fading, it is a becoming. And for empaths, it's the moment when a lifetime of sensitivity, suffering, and survival finally crystallizes into something the world desperately needs. Wisdom that feels, strength that understands, power that heals. And once you recognize this, you'll never again mistake an aging empath's quietness for weakness, because behind those knowing eyes lies the accumulated power of every storm they've ever walked through. And that, according to everything Carl Jung discovered about the human psyche, is the most formidable force in existence.